to Business Mentorship, Keepin It Real, where we introduce corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and participate with their great idea in our guest blog found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us from Anagance, New Brunswick. Salma Burney is a virtual assistant, meeting producer, and all-round adventurer who during COVID changed her life and is living off the grid. Let's hear how Salma has turned an adventure into a new revenue stream while continuing to be a Girl Friday. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Salma Burney.
Thank you, Trish.
You know, I have to say, I absolutely love your logo, and I can see that you've dressed for the part today. So you're wearing your cape, your awesome cape.
Yes,
do you want to get up and show us the back? Let's see the back.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? It's fantastic. Oh my gosh, I love it. Virtual Girl Friday. Love it, love it. So how did you get into becoming a Virtual Girl Friday? Because you've been at that segment of your business for a number of years.
I started my business 20 years ago when there was no Zoom. Everything was different. And the way it came to me, well, the name itself, my mom told me that there were these Girl Fridays that would work at offices. And I thought, I'll take the old and the new and put them together. And that's how I came up with Virtual Girl Friday. But Brilliant. The business itself, I was an executive assistant, EA for 23 years. And I was working somewhere and I would finish my work by 12:30 and then I'd be twiddling my thumbs and I could only search the internet for so long. Okay. And I would ask other people, can I do some work? Can I help you? And the other EAs would say, Salma, don't work so hard. Don't work so fast. It looks bad for the rest of us. So I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? So back in 2004, remember there used to be a thing called the Learning Annex?
Yes.
Right. So they had an event and I was living in Toronto at the time. And I went and it was how to be a virtual assistant. I'm like, oh, this is cool. So this lady out in Vancouver was giving a course on how to be a VA. And I'm like, okay. Now, interestingly, it was going to cost $900 and it was over the phone. At that time, there was no Zoom and it was a few-week course. Well, I didn't have 900. So the night before, I asked God, help me get $900. Well, that day while I was at work, I listened to Chum FM, which is a radio station in Toronto, and they had a competition called Beat the Bank. So I got on Beat the Bank and it went on and the bell went 400, then 500, and then 900. And I'm like, oh, that's all I need.
That's your number.
Yes. And as everyone's like, oh, just one more. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be greedy. That's all I need. So I said, I'm going to stay. They said, oh, well, let's see how much you could have won. Well, it went to 1,500 and then the bell. So I didn't really lose out. So I won my money. And at that time, I had no idea about manifestation or the secret, but I actually did it.
You did for sure.
So
that's awesome.
And then I took her course and then I learned about being a VA and I gave my 2 weeks notice at my company. And on a Friday was my last day as an employee. Monday, I became self-employed. And I had somebody I was working for on a Sunday. So I was a Virtual Girl Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I moved him to a Monday and he gave me a referral to one of his people. He was an engineer and this person was a home builder and he needed someone. So I had my first client and then I just started all my business. Back. No. And I've been very fortunate. All my business has been by referral, third, fourth, fifth party referral. I hadn't had to spend $1 on advertising.
Wow, isn't that fantastic? And you actually had a very successful and obviously fulfilling career until you decided that you were going to take your business online and then on the go. So fill us in, because when I was reading your story this morning, I saw that, obviously, as you say, technology's changed a lot in 20 years. So now you could kind of do your business wherever you wanted as long as you had an internet connection, right?
Exactly. And this was in 2019. I thought, well, you know what? Like you said, as long as I have an internet connection, I can go anywhere. And I loved to travel at the time. So I bought a travel trailer, and me and my husband, we took the virtual girl on the road. And his job was to find us places and things to do while I busily worked in the trailer virtually. And I used my phone as a hotspot. So we were doing this for about 6 months. And while we were staying in Texas, this was in December 2019, we thought, we don't want to go back to that concrete jungle. We lived in Hamilton at the time. And we're like, we like this, wide space, going out, seeing things. Let's look around. So his job was to find us a new place. Well, he's a rock climber and a caver. That means British Columbia. That's where people that love those activities go. But as some people might know, BC stands for bring cash.
I love that.
So we're like, no.
Definitely
Ontario,
not the West Coast, right?
no, no. So we lived in Ontario. We thought, okay, let's go to Northern Ontario. Problem is, that's where bug country is. And just getting there is, if the traffic's good in the GTA, a good 8 hours. So
Yeah,
that would be
yeah,
hard for a family coming back and forth. So
sure.
we're like, okay. Then we looked into Atlantic Canada, and we saw this place here in New Brunswick. We're like, okay. And we looked on Google Maps, and we're like, all right, it's 10 minutes to this town called Petitcodiac. And oh, there's a little city called Sussex that has a lot of stuff, and it's 20 minutes away. Okay. So, and we knew that we wanted to take a house and convert it to living off grid, which means in our point, off grid is we use solar and wind to power our house. And then we use a wood stove and a propane heater to heat ourselves in the winter. So we knew we didn't need anything fancy because we were going to renovate. So we found this and we're like, perfect. So sight unseen, we bought this while we were in Texas. And the story goes, we got a call from the lawyer while we were on the highest peak in Texas saying, congratulations, you got the land. So,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah. So we were all excited and we like, okay, we know we have to come back, but we don't want to come back too fast because snowbirds don't want to come back in
No.
January and February. So we got back family day in 2020. And my neighbor found out that I was selling my house and she bought it sight unseen. Not sight unseen, what you call it, with no conditional offers.
Right, right.
So I had my house sold. We knew that we were going to move in June. So we waited till then. And then June 20, and then COVID happened, but we were already ready for
In
COVID.
motion. Yeah.
And all my clients were already prepared because while I was traveling, I had prepared them for online help. So it was a seamless going from Ontario to New Brunswick, and they didn't see a difference, just that there is now an hour time difference.
Sure. Wow, isn't that fantastic? Talk about, manifesting. You mentioned that we didn't even realize what that was way back when. But
Exactly.
but talk about manifesting your journey and having all of the pieces of the puzzle just kind of flip into shape.
Oh
And then
yeah.
you're right, and you're in this new place. Now you started a whole new revenue stream. So you're still doing Girl Friday,
Yep.
because thankfully you're going to be the producer for our awards and networking event in December. So, how did you create this now, sort of like an adventure camping, day trip kind of location now? How did that come about?
Well, so just a preface, we always talk about, we go from a postage stamp in Hamilton to owning 50 acres here. So, and at the time too, people never believe it, but we bought 50 acres for $40,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
You're
what a
absolutely
steal.
right. People would not believe that. Holy cow.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we saw the layout, and there was just a little piece of land that we needed just to make sure we owned everything. And we got another 10 acres for $2,500.
Holy cow.
So we own a total of 60 acres. So in the first year, it was all about getting ready for winter because that's a
Sure.
big thing out here. The second year, we thought, my husband was going to a place where it was an indoor rock climbing gym. And we thought, oh, we could build that here. So, I mean, we have all the land, why not? So we built our adventure park, and then we thought, well, wait a minute, what are people going to do when they're finished? They need somewhere maybe to stay. So we thought, okay, we will take out this. There were little hay roads in the area. So we actually cleared paths and we made camping sites. And that's how, when we thought, well, what are we going to name this? Well, we're a venture, but we live off grid. So we came with off grid adventure. And we are a back to nature campground for people here in New Brunswick.
Isn't that fantastic? Now, you've mentioned you went from the hustle and bustle and, the concrete jungle of Ontario, right now into living off the grid. If you had to describe the difference, perhaps not in your personality, but in your lifestyle choice and how you feel about life now, can you give us a quick indication as to the Selma that was living in the Golden Horseshoe and the Selma that is now living in New Brunswick?
Well, I guess the big difference is I just can't walk to the store.
Right. Yeah.
uh, However, I can take a 10-minute ride, and out here the highway traffic is nothing compared to
Right.
Ontario. So there are times I'd be driving to Moncton, and I might have two cars pass me, and that's middle of the day.
Wow.
So that's a bigger difference, where there's less stress. There's no traffic stress. There's
Right.
none of the, oh, rush, 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 rush. Out here, it's more calm. The difference is, when I go into Moncton and get my groceries and do my um, errands at Costco, after a while, I'm like, ooh, everything is congested. I want to come back to my space. So then when I come home and I'm like, okay, now I'm my green space. So it's much more, the stress is different. I mean, the stress
Sure.
we have is, oh, do we have enough wood for the winter? Oh, what's the weather looking? Because us and the Weather Network app, we're on it all the time to
Sure.
see what the weather's like. We've learned, I mean, the difference is, out in when I was in GTA, I didn't really, I thought about the weather, but I would just work with it.
Right.
Okay, it's going to rain, it's going to snow, no big deal. Out
Right.
here, I and Mother Nature, we have to work together. So when
Sure.
she runs, or I'm just going to call her she, when
Yeah.
she runs the temperatures and the forecast, well, we're like, okay, we're going to pivot. It's a sunny day. I can do my vacuum cleaning. Oh, today's a cloudy day. Well, okay, I'm not going to use as many items that consume energy,
Electricity. Yeah.
because I have a lower voltage. So
Sure.
things get changed. Like yesterday, it was 21 degrees here and it was sunny. And I'm like, okay, I got to do this painting on a wall. So I did my painting on the wall during the day, but at night I can do my computer work. So things
Sure.
pivot, because that wasn't as urgent. And, things that had to be done during daylight hours kind of
Yeah.
get done.
Yeah. Different priorities. Now, have you found that there's any difference? Are you gravitating from being the virtual Girl Friday into doing more of the off-grid adventure work, or is it working out sort of 50-50?
It's it's gravitating a little bit, like I am doing the virtual work, but now I'm doing more of the off grid because now we also built our horse park. We are the only location or the only campground in New Brunswick where you can bring your horses camping. And we have a horse park that is the first of its kind in Canada, where it's run by solar and we collect rainwater for the horses to drink. So there are activities. We actually have this weekend a rain barrel workshop. So we have a lady coming in teaching how to do barrel racing. I'm not into that. I'm going to watch. I call myself the little girl at 53 that got her horse. Because, a little girl, 7, 8 gets her
Yeah.
first horse. Well,
Mm.
at 52, I got my first horse. So now I'm learning with the 7, 8 year olds how to ride my horse.
Isn't that fantastic? If you had to, our viewing and listening audience is, I'm sure, going like, holy cow, this is an amazing story. Like, talk about doing a real, making a huge lifestyle change. And I mean, as you've shared with us, you're not 25, like this is sort of a business venture and a whole different way of thinking, sort of in midlife almost. So, if you had to share a skill that you would have said has taken you from being, resilient and entrepreneur and being able to sort of see opportunities and go with the flow and make the most of your time and energy, what would the skill that you think you've been able to take with you throughout your career that's sort of top of mind?
Adaptability.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
really have to be, and then the new word was pivot, right? You have
right.
to be adaptable and pivot and see the opportunities. For
Yeah.
example, I knew that when COVID happened, I'm not going to do the face-to-face computer instruction. So it became online. And then there was the adaptability of, oh, everybody's on Zoom, but they don't understand it. I can help them. And that's
Right.
what a Zoom producer or a virtual producer does. It's that
Mhm.
extra set of hands that now
Mhm.
helps you as a facilitator, make things run smoothly in the background.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to, firsthand getting a firsthand experience with your skills at our award ceremony, later on in this season. And we're super grateful for, the folks who have sort of connected us, because even though we had a connection through someone did an online referral, then when I started to talk about, your skills through our advisory board, and everyone's like, oh, I know Salma. And I thought, well, now I know Salma too. So there you go. So we're super
It's
thrilled.
Well, thank you. And the world is very small. It's
Small, yeah.
interesting. And even though I'm not in Ontario, I still connect with all of my networking groups out there. And I still refer business back and forth because there is no boundaries now like
No,
we
that's
had in the
true.
past.
Yeah, that's so true. Now, one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we ask folks to share 3 words of advice. So I'd like you to sort of wrap up our conversation today by sharing why these 3 words are important to you. And you've alluded a little bit to your first word, which is pivot. Your second word is diversify. And your third word is self-confidence. So give us an indication as to why those 3 words are important for you.
Well, diversification was important because in my early years, when I only had one service, if my when my clients went away on vacation in the summer, I was like, I don't have any business. That means I don't
Right.
have any money. I was like, okay, I have to get some other services. So at that time, I became a minute taker for condominiums. So I was then going to condo board meetings and taking minutes. And then I also started computer instruction. So having those 3 baskets of services, something was always going to be happening. So I had a consistency. And the third one was self confidence. When I first started and people would ask for my price, I'd be like, I think it's $25. And I wouldn't be really confident in my services. And I learned that my knowledge has value. So after having 23 years as an employee and now 20 years as a virtual assistant, I've learned my knowledge in this industry has value And if a person cannot afford it, I will always, I always try my best to find another person to help them. I don't like to leave people stranded, but the other ones, then they see the value in my services.
Well, I have to say, I think that what you've done is really very inspiring, Selma. And I'm so thrilled that we had an opportunity to connect and that we're going to be able to continue to build a long-term business relationship in the years and months to come. So
Oh,
thank you so much for joining us. It's really been an absolute pleasure. And I have to tell you, I love that cape.
Thank you. Well, when I come to Ontario, I tend to come once a year. I'll make sure I bring it.
Yes,
and I'll see you hopefully at some networking event, and then we can hug with the cape on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, introducing you to the person behind the logo. If you'd like to connect with our guest, you'll find Salma's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in sharing your business story, visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.